What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the WideBody Nation podcast. I'm on my way to the gym, and today we're going to be talking about the hot news off the press, student loan forgiveness. Now, obviously this can be a pretty politically and emotionally charged topic, but I'm not really looking to address that from that angle to you guys. I'm going to bring up some things that not a lot of people are talking about, and just more like the macro issues and implications rather than getting in the trenches of like a you versus me or left versus right or red versus blue. So if you guys appreciate this kind of conversation, I'm looking to do these podcasts probably about once a week or so. So let me know in the comments below, hit the like button while you're down there, and go ahead and hit the subscribe button. So while I drink my bucked up pre-workout on the way to the gym, I think there's a backstory you guys should know before I start talking about everything in this conversation. So a little bit about me and my family, because this has very specific relevance. So I am active duty Army. I've been active duty for about 6.5 years now, and I commissioned as an officer through ROTC. Now, that's important to this conversation because the Army or the government, the US government, paid for all 4 years of my tuition, and my room and board was paid by an endowment, and we'll get to endowments later. But I went to college. I went to a private Catholic college in New England, which should have cost me about $250,000, no joke, from 2012 to 2016. That should have cost me $250,000. It cost me $0, and I got paid to be there, a small stipend every month as well. So that is where I'm coming from. Now, on the flip side, my wife went to a state school, not in Tennessee, not in New England. She went to a different school. She went to a state school, didn't have very many scholarships, and she has student loans that she's still paying off from her first bachelor's, that she also earned back from 2012 to 2016. Now, that kind of gives you the framing where, like, I'm sitting on both sides here. You know, I chose to join the Army, and the Army, one of the perks was that I earned a scholarship, and then I have never had student debt before. So, you know, you might imagine that I would be one of these people that's like, oh, student debt forgiveness, like, that's terrible, that's a scam, that's just gonna raise inflation, all the criticisms you would expect me to have. Now, but also, I'm in the unique perspective where, you know, my family has, you know, more than 10 grand of student debt by way of my wife. So I also have skin in the game on, you know, like, selfishly wanting to get that forgiven. So with that being said, let's talk about what the government is trying to do, or what they are actually doing, I suppose, what the administration is doing, and the ramifications that it's going to have, because there's so many ramifications that people are not talking about, or not talking about enough. So the most obvious one is the fairness. Now, you know, I already gave you guys kind of like my little backstory that's relevant for student loans. A lot of people would say that it's unfair that my wife would get her loan, her $10,000 of forgiveness, but I wouldn't, because one of the reasons why I joined the Army and kind of like made a sacrifice or whatever was to get my college paid for, right? So if she's getting 10 grand of you know, forgiveness, why wouldn't I get 10 grand of money or forgiveness, right? Well, I have no student loan, so obviously I'm not going to get it. So it's a fairness issue, right? Or furthermore, even worse than my situation where I just didn't have student loans because I earned a scholarship, someone who had student loans and then hurried and grinded and busted their butt to pay them off, only to have the government come out and then forgive them at a later date. Like, let's say you paid off your student loans in 2019 before the pandemic, you know, then you're sitting here like, wow, I should have just made the minimum payments and waited till the government forgave them, you know? Now, that is only one part of the issue, but that's the most things I you know, everybody makes memes about that kind of stuff. Everyone makes everyone's online ranting about it one way or the other, and I'm just astonished that you know, people aren't talking about some of the other aspects of it. So, like I said, I'm active duty military. One of the biggest recruiting pulls we have in the military is the GI Bill, which is basically the government funding soldiers to go to college. Now, in order for soldiers to get the GI Bill, which GI stands for government issue or general issue, it's just more like a slang term. So the GI Bill is earned by serving in the Army. You earned your first part of the GI Bill, I believe, after 90 days of active duty service, and then you keep getting 10% more of the GI Bill up until about 3 years of service. So after you do 3 years, from my understanding, you get a full GI Bill. Now you guys might be asking, how much money, how much education support is the full GI Bill? Well, the full GI Bill, it goes up every year, obviously, because college tuition goes up every year, which is a whole nother conversation. But the GI Bill, roughly right now, for sake of easy numbers, is about $25,000 of tuition per calendar year right now. Now, obviously, you guys can go online and see how much the GI Bill actually is, but every year they increase it, corresponding to inflation, corresponding to rising school costs, etc., etc. Now, again, we're doing this for ease of numbers. So the GI Bill, let's say you have your full GI Bill. You served for 3 years active duty honorably, and then you get out as a soldier, right? That way, you can get out, and presumably as like maybe a 21, 22, 23-year-old, you now have the opportunity to go to college basically for free, because you have 25 times 4 years of coverage, which is about $100,000 worth of coverage directly from the United States government through, you know, your Veterans Affairs benefits. There's a whole process for it, but that's not the point of this video. Furthermore, there are many schools that are military friendly that have what's called a yellow ribbon program, and there are other programs, but the yellow ribbon program is kind of the most important for the sake of this conversation. And the yellow ribbon program, a lot of schools that have higher tuition. So like I live near Nashville. Let's take Vanderbilt University, for example. The yellow ribbon program covers everything the GI Bill does not. So I'll give you an example. My GI Bill is active again because I'm almost at 7 years of service. So my GI Bill has been reactivated because I did my initial 4 years of service. And now I'm reactivating my GI Bill by doing another 3 years of service so I could pay for my future MBA. Let's say when I get out of the Army, or when I'm still in the Army, or let's say when I get out of the Army. When I get out of the Army, when I go to Nashville, go to Vanderbilt, and I use my GI Bill, $25,000 goes towards tuition. But Vanderbilt MBA tuition is darn near $80,000 a year for 2 years. Vanderbilt has the yellow ribbon program, which covers everything the GI Bill does not. So the yellow ribbon program works hand in hand with the GI Bill, and so I could go to Vanderbilt for free and make, and get paid housing, etc., because of that yellow ribbon program. That's just kind of an example of all the education benefits available to soldiers who serve their country honorably and then get out in a with a positive discharge status. We're not talking people who get out, who get kicked out for very egregious things, or maybe get medically discharged very quickly after they sign up, perhaps. That was a little bit of a rabbit hole. I just wanted to show you guys how valuable the military is as far as education goes, because as the government starts forgiving student loans, I know $10,000 isn't that much compared to how much a lot of Americans owe, but some of the statistics I've seen, it says the average student loan borrower owes just over $30,000 worth of student loans, which seemed a little low to me, honestly, but I mean, that's good, I guess, that it seems low to me. As the government keeps forgiving these loans, the Army's already having recruiting issues and retention issues. So there's two ways to get and keep people in the Army. There's recruiting them to get in, and then there's retaining them to stay in. The Army's having trouble with both of those right now. Now, it seems odd to me that the Army, or that the government would start forgiving people's loans when they full well know that I would say probably their top three, if not their top way they get people in the Army is education benefits. Because if people are joining the Army to serve their country, but also to have a job, but also to get, you know, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 worth of education benefits, but then the government starts watering that down, that's gonna hurt the Army's recruiting program, which is already hurting so bad. To my knowledge, and the stats that I've seen, the Army is having its worst recruiting years since the post-Vietnam era, which tells you something. You guys gotta remember, there was a draft during Vietnam. So we are at historic recruiting lows right now, as well as historic retention lows right now. I have a lot of soldiers in my company that are getting out of the Army. They've been in anywhere from 3 to 8 years. A lot of those soldiers are choosing to get out of the Army simply because the Army is not paying them enough to keep up with inflation. The Army is not, you know, we're not necessarily doing what a lot of people want to be doing in the Army anymore. You know, we're not really involved in a lot of, say, kinetic things anymore. We're just doing a lot of training and readiness things, which is the nature of the beast. We're kind of in the dry years right now, as Jocko Willink would say. But my point is that the Army is having a lot of problems recruiting and retaining soldiers. And the student loan forgiveness is not going to help that. It is going to hurt it, and it's going to hurt it a lot if they keep doing this. $10,000, it's a little bit, that's more just like kind of like a little middle finger to us as far as like, you know, soldiers with education benefits. If they start forgiving more than just $10,000 or it becomes a yearly thing, that's gonna get to the point where people say, okay, cool, awesome, I have these education benefits. They don't really mean anything anymore, which is gonna make even more people wanna get out or not sign up. So, that is one thing that you guys, I would say, need to think about when you're keeping in mind the student loan forgiveness and the impacts on our country and on our military and on our economy. Now, obviously, you know, student loan forgiveness is going to be an inflationary, it's going to be an inflationary contributor, or you know, a catalyst per se, because that money's got to come from somewhere, right? So either the government's going to take it from people, they're going to tax the heck out of people, or they're just going to create more money, right? They're going to print more money, they're going to increase the money supply, and it's going to cause inflation one way or another. Furthermore, it's going to cause inflation because rather than people paying their student loans down, people are going to now have that money to spend in the economy, which is going to further drive prices up. That's one of the ways that inflation happens, is when people have excess money and they spend it. Yes, it's good because revenues are up, wages go up, but you kind of get into a wage price spiral where everyone spends, and then companies are constrained with the supply chain issues and they have to raise prices. So then prices go up, wages have to go up to meet prices, and it becomes a spiral. We can do another video on that or talk about that another time. But just generally speaking, student loan forgiveness is inflationary. Now, I'm on a roll right now. I'm getting close to the gym, but we're gonna keep this thing going. Okay, next. The people that have the most student loans are not poor usually. Like all the people I know in my life that have the most student loans, doctors, lawyers, you know, psychologists, all these people who make at least 6 figures a year, if not more, they all have the most student loans. So $10,000 to them is a drop in the bucket as far as their student loan sum goes, but also you're basically paying back the more wealthy Americans. Now, you guys are gonna say in the comments, oh, well, it's capped at people who make less than $125K a year. But if you're married, that means you have to make less than $250K a year. And, you know, it's really not that hard. If you guys get an accountant, it's really not that hard to make your income. Like, there's a tax code for a reason. Accountants exist for a reason. Like, y'all, if you guys don't use an accountant, I would highly recommend, because H&R Block and TurboTax have both been investigated on how they're skimming off the top of your tax return. So I would highly recommend you not use H&R Block, not use TurboTax, not use any of those wazoo people. Find a small business that's reputable, or or get referred by a financial advisor and get an accountant. It's gonna pay for itself, I promise. But so many middle class people, and even you would say upper middle class or like wealthy people, have the most student loans. So if we keep forgiving them, it's just giving people that are already relatively wealthy forgiveness, which, again, I have a problem with the education industrial complex, which is what I call it. But that's kind of all I'll say. I think I'm gonna have to make a video on the whole wealthy side of the house thing, because like it's funny to me that one political party supports it, even though they're basically like paying off the wealthiest part, or the wealthier part of America, not their constituents. So whatever. Okay, next. And I guess this will be my last point, and it's the most important point. Our education system is preposterous. We live in an education industrial complex, very similar to the military industrial complex. Why is it that colleges feel that they can charge 50, 60, 70, 80 grand a year when they have billions and billions of dollars, or at least hundreds of millions of dollars in their endowments, and they are tax-free institutions? Why are we forgiving the student loans when we're not reforming these colleges' budgets, how much they're charging students, especially in the modern age where half these classes are now online? They're not even offering the networking events anymore because of the pandemic. They're not even offering half the value anymore that they used to, and they just keep jacking up prices. So this whole student debt forgiveness, whether it was $1, whether it was $10,000, whether it's $100,000, the way that they're going about it is incorrect. They are putting a Flex Seal over a gaping river flooding a dam. They are not fixing the problem. They are just band-aiding. They're just putting on a crappy band-aid to a massive catastrophe, which is the education industrial complex. The amount of money that these colleges are charging is criminal, and remember, they don't pay taxes on it. You pay taxes on your income, you pay taxes on what you spend on, you pay taxes on everything multiple times over. These colleges don't, and they just sit on money, and they make all these crazy, super nice things at their colleges, and they don't focus on learning anymore. They don't spend nearly enough money on actually educating people, and that's why so many companies don't even really care about your college degree anymore. Or now they want you to have a master's. Like, I went and got a master's for pennies on the dollar because the Army paid for it. I went and got a master's, but I just got it so I could say I have a master's. I didn't really get it for any reason specifically. I just got it because I knew very soon down the road they're gonna be like, oh, cool bachelor's. Like, I don't care about that. They're gonna care about my Army experience. They're gonna care about my entrepreneurial experience, and then they'll care if I have a master's. So I think I'm gonna have to do a video on the education industrial complex, because that is the term I am coining for the education system as we know it right now. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. Obviously, this was kind of like a stream of consciousness rant. We haven't done any guests on the podcast yet, really. So let me know if you guys want guests. But just remember that anything I said in this video, I'm not saying it on behalf of the Army. I'm not saying it from the Army's point of view. I'm just saying it from, WideBody Nation's point of view as a 27-year-old man, right? So please do not get it confused with the views of the Army or the opinions or any type of official communication. But I thought it would give you guys a very good peek behind the curtain of how this could impact things that are not just inflation and things not just people's feelings or fairness, right? You know, Army recruiting, Army retention, the education industrial complex, kind of enriching the already well-off people rather than helping a lot of, you know, underprivileged or poor people, right? So I think I owe you guys a video at my computer where I can pull up some stats and we can actually kind of like dig into this in a more coherent and like factual way and less just like a macro perspective. But I do find these points valuable when I've talked to people that are maybe not in the Army or that are, you know, just from a different background. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Let me know if you guys like these podcasts. I put a couple of them out before, back when I had the Charger Hellcat. That was kind of like the ultimate podcasting studio because it was so insulated and so comfy. But yeah, let me know how the audio was as well, because I have the GoPro kind of put up where you guys would be sitting. And I talk really loud, as you guys know, but this WRX is not like the most like insulated car, but I'm sure you guys could hear the new ETS intake that we installed last week. But appreciate y'all for tuning in. Stay safe out there, and I will see you guys for the next video.